Unlike most other anime, God of High School's creator Yoonji Park is working directly with Studio Mappa to fix and modify things that he didn't like in the webtoon. This makes the anime iteration the best version of God of High School. With the webtoon being so action heavy, the anime can breeze by fights in seconds that could take a whole chapter or more in the webtoon. This gives Park the opportunity to flesh out different aspects of his story. Although the anime does an amazing job, I'll be going over everything that it skips in order to give you guys a fuller understanding of the story. Episode 2, Renewal/Soul, covering chapters 1 through 3, the end of chapter 7, a little tidbit from chapter 6, and chapters 8 through 13. In terms of missing content, episode 2 had very little of it. This episode is characterized by order changes and reworks from the webtoon. The episode opened in a very similar way to last week and was focused around the handprint. The opening covered the end of chapter 7 and just fleshed it out a little bit. Both versions focus on the Pentagon and reference the power of Cherryok making traditional weaponry useless, and in both versions we also see Moojin Park talking to the president. One notable thing that was blowing up on Twitter was that Obama wasn't in the episode. Instead, the president was based off of Robert Downey Jr. There's actually a whole video on Crunchyroll Extras that explains this change. If you guys would like to watch it, it's linked in a card which you should see at the top of the video right about now. After this scene with the government, we get the opening in the anime, then we jump to our main characters, Mori, Mira, and Daiwi. They're walking home from the preliminaries, and this part of the episode covers chapter 8 with a few modifications. The chapter and episode are very similar at the beginning, and both adaptations show Mira being mad at the boys for following her home before it's explained that they just live near each other. In the webtoon, the trio were attacked by a biker gang that were trying to avenge their friend, which was the purse thief from last episode. In the scuffle, the gang was easily defeated, but the more important part about this was there was a huge explosion and Mori jumps in front of Mira and it ends up scarring his back really badly. The biker scene being removed wasn't that big of a deal, but the moment where Mori saved Mira added a touch of realism to their blossoming friendship, which wasn't shown in the anime. Here, the anime decides to incorporate bits and pieces of chapters 1 through 3 from the webtoon. It shows parts of the group's flashbacks to getting invited to God of High School. These flashbacks are triggered when Mori asks everyone to share their motivations for entering the tournament. Mori says he wants to fight strong guys, and we see a clip of him getting beat by Judge R, while Daiwi says he needs money and we see a flashback with his bedridden friend. Mira says that what she wants is more difficult and complicated than the other two's desires, as she wants to restore her family's dojo. But all we get from her flashback is a clip of her getting invited and not the backstory with her father, as the anime wants to put this on a little later in the episode. In both adaptions, Mori messes with Mira's sword and it ends up in the river, causing Mira to get angry and slap him. Mori then goes to help Mira find her sword, but in the anime we get another snippet of chapter 3 when Mira explains that the sword was a dying gift from her dad. After this flashback, we see Daiwi arrive with a light to help the two search for the sword, but in the webtoon, Daiwi actually brings the whole biker crew to help them look for it, but since the biker scene isn't in an anime, this is a rather obvious change. But anyway, after Daiwi gets there, they end up finding the sword, and this marks the end of chapter 8. The next scene shows the start of the preliminaries, and we see Mori sleeping in the locker room area, while Manseok stands over him saying he wants to beat him up. This scene is anime only, but we get a snippet from chapter 6 that was skipped in episode 1. It was the scene where Mori saved Gamdo from a deadly kick of Manseok's. Then we go back to chapter 9 with Mira and Mori's quick fights, then we get some more restructuring as we skip to chapter 13 to see Ma Minseon's fight and Sung Chol's fight. Then we go back to chapter 9 to see Daiwi's fight. I think that it was a really smart decision to restructure the episode in this way, so we got all of the small fights out of the way before seeing the climax of the episode, which was the fight between Gamdo and Manseok, which turned into the fight between Manseok and Mori. After Daiwi's fight, we get a conversation between Gamdo and Mori, which is the same in the anime as it is in the webtoon. Then we get a fight between Gamdo and Manseok, which stays the same throughout chapter 9. Then a few differences arise once we start to cover chapter 10. The main difference being that that the anime didn't go into detail covering Northern ITF Taekwondo, whilst the webtoon did. So I'm gonna briefly go over what was skipped in the anime. The webtoon shows a North Korean operative that was captured alive by the South Korean government, and 50 martial artists were pitted against him, but the North Korean agent killed 26, left 9 unconscious, and seriously injured 15. He practiced Northern ITF Taekwondo, which was designed as a killing skill for North Korean espionage agents. The person that was able to defeat the North Korean operative was Taijin Jin, which is Mori's grandfather, by using Renewal Taekwondo, which was a style he created to counter it. That should clear up the confusion that the anime creates when Mori says he doesn't like Manseok's Taekwondo. Anyway, back to the episode. The rest of chapter 10 is covered identically, then we get to chapter 11 and there's some more differences. In the anime we get a flashback of Manseok begging on his hands and knees, but we get some more detail in the webtoon. We're shown Manseok fighting some street thugs, then he was injured severely by Jagal. After his recovery in the hospital and 1-year disappearance, he went to Jagal's school and killed 300 students. The rest of the chapter was the same as the episode. Then we go to chapter 12, which is the same as it is in the anime until the flashback. In the anime, we just get a brief clip of Manseok surrendering to Jagal, then a cloaked woman offers him power, saying it's not a surprise that someone like him can't use Cheriok. In the webtoon, however, we get a lot more detail. We're shown Manseok at a young age groveling, and he makes a promise to himself to never beg for his life in the same way his father did. Then we see him groveling to Jagal, breaking this promise, and he gets hospitalized. After getting hospitalized, he's offered the power from the cloaked woman. This is the one case so far in the anime where I think the webtoon did it better, because it did a really good job fleshing out Manseok's character and making him more understandable for the audience. After the flashback, the fight with Mori is pretty much the same besides the ending. A lot of people are freaking out about God of High School having potentially lackluster animation of Mori's triple kick, but it seemed like it was a different attack than was used in the webtoon. The webtoon shows the triple Huichuk as a simultaneous after images, so I assume we'll get a cool animation of this attack and a later fight. The ending of the episode just covered the remaining parts of chapter 13, with Mori being walked out of the arena and being disqualified. Overall, this week's episode was really good. There weren't many changes, and the changes that did occur just helped the story flow better than it did in the webtoon. That's all. Thanks for watching. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please leave it in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe.